Live.
Hello, everyone. This is Reza Dorrani. Welcome to the R&D show.
Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and you can also hear my neighbor's lawnmower running. So that's it. But welcome to the R&D show. It is 2022. Woohoo!
How are you doing, Dan?
I'm as much as I love the holiday season, I am so happy to get back into a routine. That's one of the just the kind of guy I am. But I'm excited, man. I was looking forward to our R&D show season 2.
Yeah,
Super stoked to be over here.
absolutely. And season two, we planned this out probably 6 months ago. We planned season one a year ago. We never thought we will get that kind of a response. So I would like to, well, from my side and Dan's side, we would like to thank everyone who has supported the show. Thank you so much. We've seen a lot of love, and the show has grown. And I hope season two is comes out stronger and better than season one. To start with, you see it's already better, right? The lawn mowing sound has gone away. I think Dan's on mute. So, all right. So here we are today for session one, which is all about the latest features in Power Apps, specifically targeted towards collaboration. And we've got someone from Microsoft who is going to join us today. I would like to talk about him a little bit. I'll just take 30 seconds. uh, Reza is here today in this community only because of him. So he has been my constant support throughout this journey, and I would like to, this is my opportunity to publicly say thank you uh, to the man who really supported me throughout my journey. Little emotional calling this out, but he's one of my favorite people in the Power Apps community. Honest, truthful, and super energetic. And I think it's going to come out in the call today. So, Dan, what do you have to say? You're on mute. There you
Man,
go.
I mean, just there are so many community peoples as well. But my emotions, my thoughts are all it's the same way as well, man. There are a lot of people who I have such high respect for, but there's a few of them who I can just connect really well. They see me and they also see right through me. Is that okay? He's this is the Daniel he is, but he's also emotionally very invested in stuff like this. So yeah. Mutual sentiments, man. Mutual
Yeah.
sentiments, and then like you said, you'll see it. You will see it.
All right. So we're going to call the man out on our show. Extremely excited for him to be here. So I'm going to add Charles Sterling onto R&D show. Hello.
I don't deserve any of that credit. You guys are actually phenomenal stars all into yourselves, but I will actually positively accept the fact that I love being your conduits back into Microsoft. You guys are fun to work with. You're energetic yourselves. I actually get the energy from you folks. I actually don't bring that to the table. So the credit is all back to you. And when we actually talked about these topics that we would cover, I'm glad that we actually covered this one because, we've been talking about how fusion development and low code is a team sport, and to go out and actually show how we're delivering on that is actually pretty cool. And to actually show those features. And you guys took it from hey, isn't this coming? I think we could show that to fruition. And actually, I saw the application that you guys are creating is actually pretty phenomenal. So thank you for actually, kind of showing off where the strategy of the product is going.
And I think our topic today is going to be of a lot of interest for app makers. So anyone who ever wanted to collaborate while creating apps, I think this topic is all about that, and extremely excited to get started with this. So Chuck, the floor is yours to begin with. I'll go and share your screen.
Okay, perfect. So you've actually seen the slide that says that low code is a team sport. And what we wanted to do today is actually show you some of those features. And we got 3 new features that we're going to walk through. And the reason for this effort and this impetus is the fact that we've done some research and we know that there's about 25% more engagement from applications that are built by teams. And that way you actually get kind of the melding of the best experiences from these versus actually something that's actually built in a silo. So what are these features that we're going to be talking about? Office-like commenting. So this is actually while you're doing the creation of the application, it's kind of interesting is that Power Apps has come done such a good job of blending what is the runtime versus the design time. We actually have kind of blurred the lines on where the collaboration is. So the first one is very much a maker experience. And the last one that we'll get to is also a maker experience. Versus the second one on my list is this is actually something that enables your users to actually collaborate themselves. So this is actually a runtime feature. So 2 maker experiences while you build the application, and 1 runtime that actually helps your users. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Does that sound okay, Reza and Daniel?
Absolutely. Let's go for it.
Perfect. So right off the bat, if you've actually been following along the Power Platform products, you'll actually see that office style commenting is actually kind of surfacing in the rest of the platform. So you can actually go out and take a look at it. And one of my favorite tools is the Power Virtual Agents. You can actually see it in there. Reza Dorrani was actually pretty excited. He was actually pinging me a couple months ago. It was actually well before the holidays, and said, "Hey, look, it's actually in Flows now." So he's a dual super user in the Flow space, and actually I got to see it first time, I think, on his machine for Flows and the commenting. I wanted to show you what it looks like today coming out, and we're actually rolling it out right now inside of Power Apps. So right off the bat, you'll actually see that I've got one of my peers, Pedro Sacramento. He's actually went out and commented this morning, and I've got what time was Emma's. Emma's was a couple days ago. So let's go ahead and look at their comments on our applications that we're working together on. So if I go ahead and click on that, and that was email that I actually received from an @comment inside of the application itself. So the application's opening, and I actually see this comments preview. So there's nothing else to set up. All I have to do is go out and just basically click on this, and I can go out and see that Pedro says it's looking good. I got 2 more replies. One is from Emma Cooper, and I can go out and I think Pedro's on. So I can actually go ahead and say @Pedro, thanks, should be a great time saver. So the application that we're working on is at Microsoft. It's probably a little bit more difficult than it needs to be for ordering devices. What could this device ordering system look like? Now, also, if you take a look at the tree view over on the left-hand side, you'll notice that there's this 2 comments here, and that's because there's 2 separate threads that are going back and forth. And if you go out and take a look at the different objects inside of my tree view, you can see that account form has also got some different comments, and there's a conversation here with Pervin Patel and Pedro itself. So this is actually a design time experience for makers as we build the application, right? So it's going out and saying, like Emma said, hey, we should have another column here, and we're actually talking about the accounts themselves. Maybe we actually should have, again, a different view for those. So that's actually the first one I wanted to show. The second feature that I wanted to show, let's go ahead and go back to the slides. That way I can kind of keep on track a little bit, is the collaboration with multiplayer applications. And this is done at the runtime. Is that what you guys use, is the term runtime, Daniel and Reza? Or yeah, those are old Visual Studio constructs that don't really have much place in here. But the idea is still the same. Is now that I've deployed it, I want to see who else is taking a look at the application. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I think I have a slide on it. Good. So this one, unlike the commenting that just gets lit up, you yourself needs to, as the designer, needs to decide this is something that your users can take advantage of. So let's go ahead and oops, I meant to click on a link. These should have been hot linked. Oh, just one on the left. And this is going to open up my Power Platform Admin Center.
Mm-hmm.
Are we still live? Okay. I've lost your thumbnails.
We are.
Okay. Yeah, I see it. I got it. I'm seeing myself in latencies. That's the problem. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go ahead and enable sharing, so that way we can actually share those tables with your users. That way we can actually go out and do ad hoc sharing. So that's the first setting that you're going to want to do. And then going back into settings under product, there's actually another one for features. And here, there is one I've turned on called collaboration. And you're going to want to go ahead and turn that one on. And you can change this. I would recommend go ahead and leaving this at 60 seconds. And this right now is constrained to, I think it's 3 entities. Let's see if I can name them. Contact, account, case, and opportunity. So I said it's 3, but I held up 4 fingers. So it's actually 4. It's not 3. And that is in the documentation. So now that this is actually on for my application, I should be able to go in and actually publish it and play it. By the way, if you actually noticed that yesterday your publishing was taking a little bit longer, we actually did have some live site, and it's been resolved. You should actually not see any sort of performance degradation. It's been around that. And remember, I announced which entities we could work on: accounts, contacts, opportunities, and cases. So if I go out into accounts, I should see this new collaboration feature. Now, and I am player mode. Oh, I'm expecting something different. Hang on a second. Let's actually go into here. Oh, here it is. Okay. So I am actually running this application. This is actually what your users would experience. And you can actually see that I'm the owner, but Pedro is actually taking a look at this account right now, this second. Now, the UI isn't finished. What we should see when we go out and do share is, in addition to email link, we should actually, let's actually show the access. This is actually one of my favorite features too. How do I actually let other people look at my application if I'm a user and I want them to have access? So if I have the right permissions, I can start adding people. So I'm going to go ahead and add my favorite coworker on the team, Anna Chu, brand new to the team. And I can go ahead and give her the permissions of, I want to go out and, there we go. Come on. I want to see Anna, because I think it's actually hidden underneath of there what the permissions she's got. Let's see if I can actually click on her one more time. And no,
I see that little share option at the bottom.
Yeah, and what's happening is in between here, there's options that are getting folded up. Let's see if I can actually. We might have to come back into it. So let's go back out, close it, and what we're going to do is do share, manage access one more time. And because what's happening underneath of there is these permissions were actually hidden, and I needed to have selected them. So we're actually try it one more time. And I think it's actually a browser problem, because with StreamYard, I noticed that some of my PowerPoints I couldn't click into. So yeah, it's actually stuck right here. But right here, that list, when I actually selected Anna, or if I get rid of this is actually just stuck on it because the browser doesn't know it's there. You actually see that list, and I can actually go out and select it. So it's actually one more time. What we'll do is we'll actually select somebody that's already there. So Pedro, and let's say that I don't want to give him append. I could go ahead and say share, and that's what I would have seen for Anna had I not been in StreamYard. So the sharing experience is quite nice. And then what is coming is I should be able to actually have a start chat, and that actually gives the user themselves this link in the chat window, and it opens up this view directly in the application. So a lot of times in Visual Studio or our ASP.NET applications, we talk about the term deep linking, where actually links directly to that experience. And that's what we're actually seeing, is a deep linking inside of the Power Apps in a modern model-based application for those 4 tables. We are going to be bringing out more, but I just want to let you know that that's actually where the experiences are starting. And for the commenting that I showed earlier, that's actually getting deployed right now as we're talking. So if you're in Canada, I think it's actually already been deployed. This is actually a US tenant, and it's actually just starting to get rolled out. And I think we actually started that just before the holidays. So that is actually what I wanted to share.
So Chuck, I have a few questions. So question number 1 is, this is for model-driven apps and not for Canvas apps.
For both of them, the commenting and the collaboration is both for model-based and for modern-based applications. That is exactly right, Reza.
Okay. Are there plans for this to come into Canvas apps?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, if you go out and see the roadmap, great timing. You see that the comments for roadmaps, or the roadmap for comments, is going to be the second quarter of the calendar year. So we're actually talking about, what is that start? Is
April onwards?
Yeah, somewhere in the April-May timeframe is actually when that's being planned, and the dev team's already working on it.
Okay.
Great questions. And that's actually for comments. I think the collaboration at runtime is a little bit further out for them to extend it actually to Canvas apps and other entities. There's more work for our dev team to do there. Yes.
Okay. I noticed that when you were commenting, you could @mention people. What about scenarios wherein I'm @mentioning someone who does not have any access on the app? What happens then?
What happens there, it actually will tell you when you do an @mention that they don't have access, and to go ahead and give them access, and it links into the documentation. But it's probably worth pointing out that we've actually made sharing applications so much easier. The documentation goes through the old admin center for the Power Platform. And if you haven't played with it was actually released about a year ago. Underneath of the apps experience, you can go back out and take a look and share it directly here. So when you do an @mention of somebody that does not have access, it actually tells you right in the dialogue that they don't have access, and to give them access to sharing. And it points to the documentation using the admin portal. I'm going to recommend that you actually use the app list. And I know that I think I got this from one of your classes, Reza. So maybe Daniel's class when we did the Nailed It demo. Actually, I think it was Daniel's class on the Nailed It demo day. That was a while back. So this feature's been around for a little bit.
What I do like about this, Chuck, is that it is, even though it's a new feature, it's very intuitive, because we're already used to doing things like that in the Word documents, PowerPoint. So adopting that into the Canvas app is very intuitive. It'll just naturally come to us. I feel adoption of this will be so much more easier.
And Chuck, is this like a threaded conversation? So can I have multiple threaded conversations running for a specific, entity or a specific form or a view, as in the case you're showcasing right now?
So it's threaded and threaded. And let me actually tell you what I mean by that is, yes, I can go out and have a topic over here and have replies back to my topic. And then it's threaded, or it's actually isolated by the asset that you want to talk about, which gets a little bit confusing. It's like, where is my comment? It's like, oh, I put it on this form versus I put it at the app container level. So I don't want to say it's easy to lose comments, but they get folded back in. So that way there's not, if you had a lot of people, I can actually see it be quite daunting. It's like, oh, my comment is, well, you've been on Teams meetings with our MVP calls. They just get lost. It goes, in this case, it actually is like, oh, I'm in context, and it's contextualized about what that topic is. I went ahead and added Heather Newman as a @mention. Since I didn't add Heather as actually one of the shares, had I actually done that in share, I wouldn't have seen this. But since I didn't share it with her, you can actually see that it says, hey, this person won't be able to access this comment. They'll get the email, and they'll get a link to it. But then what they're going to do is they're going to get the red box that says you need to actually have your administrator give you permissions.
Yep.
Great questions.
There is another question. I'll actually pop this one up on the screen. It's from Gerard. Gerard says, is there a resolve option for comments? If I have a threaded comments, can I resolve it and say, this was the question, we've resolved this, so this comment thread is completed?
So Gerard, first of all, thank you for actually all of your participation in the Power Apps community calls. I love I think Gerard actually did the how to feed your dragon out game, and that was awesome. And actually Emma, who we actually had on the last call, said that they are looking at doing that, but it's actually not going to happen in the first 2 calendar years as we roll this out. What we're going to do is see how people are using it. Myself, I could almost go out and see that I wanted to have ADO tickets. We actually do a lot of ADO tickets for actually getting into your topic, actually, what I'm referring to, Reza. And I would love to go out and have it not just resolve comments, but actually resolve tickets. And that's a checkbox that I would expect as well. Okay, so they're both smiling. They understand what I'm talking about. And I think Emma has to make a decision tree. What's that going to look like in the first experience, and how many people and who are they using it, and how are they using it? But yes, Gerard, that is actually on the backlog, and what that looks like, the team has not decided.
Okay. We'll take a couple more questions, Chuck, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
Here's one from David. any ability to search across comments in an app or a screen? Searching.
I don't know, but the reason I actually hesitated is that this is actually being stored in my Dataverse tables in the solution itself. And I know that we just went out and made Dataverse searching available in M3 or Dataverse tables available in M365 search. So how about this? If it's not, it should be really easy to implement on our side, or actually just enable on your side. So I don't know. I will have to go back out and actually try that, or actually just ask Emma if this is actually already available. But if it's not, this would probably be one of the easier codes to do. Now, if you actually did it as a Dataverse search, is that the experience that you're looking for? Maybe not. So that's actually something that we would have to actually take a look at and see if that's actually the experience that people are expecting, and what does that link back to? Great question. And that was from David Van Sickle.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's actually a few good other questions. Do you want us to continue? Yep. Yeah, that's the one. That's the one I was going to talk about.
And actually, I see other questions also related to this, so I'll pop this one up. And this is from Uday. So hi, Uday.
Hey, Uday. Thanks for joining. I don't believe that these tables are actually included in the solution, but you could positively include them. So this would actually be a choice that you would make whether or not you wanted this table to be included. But I do not believe that the comments table by default are included. And the reason being is, unless you're doing a CI/CD pipeline where you might be editing it elsewhere, that would make sense, because there isn't a runtime experience for it. Unless you actually literally went out and actually had like drop downs and use it as like a KB and knowledge base. And you probably would want to change the vernacular of how we're actually having those conversations, because I could imagine that this in a drop down would not be very useful. You would actually need to go out and have a lexicon of making sure and premising what object you're referring to and what table or what form you're actually looking at. So great question, Uday. No, I don't believe that it is exported in the solution by default. But of course, since it is a table, that'd be a piece of cake just to go ahead and include it if you wanted to.
Perfect. Yeah, I think that covers most of the questions. There are a few more questions around whether this is going to come to Power Automate for sure. This is coming into Power Virtual Agents for sure. One other question, this one is from Venkata Chuck. Any plans of bringing this to Power Apps portals? Yes, no?
Yes. The answer is yes. We're going to have homogeneity across the board. And I haven't talked to Dilip to figure out where it's at in there. And I actually needed to think about, I know I just talked about it with Dilip, but I didn't talk about what the calendaring looks like. And that team is super busy actually going out and offering a whole bunch of new features. So it might get pushed back a little bit further for them. They're actually they've got some exciting news coming out. So.
All right.
Great questions.
There are a lot more trickling in, so we won't take them, because in the interest of time, we got to move on.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to wander over to the YouTube channel and I'll answer them over there. So I'm going to put myself on mute here. And if you have questions for me or anything, please put them in the chat window in YouTube and I'll wander over there.
Perfect. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, so heading back over to the presentation. Dan, are you popping the presentation up on screen?
Yep. Stand by. I just got a little sidetracked.
All right. I'm going to bring your screen up now.
Yep.
All right. So next topic is around co-authoring. So Dan, take it away.
Yeah. So a great example of what we cannot do right now pretty much answers by this. This is what happens right now, is whenever we are going to go ahead and I'm working on, say, one of the apps, Reza and me, we are both co-owners of the apps and we are working on it. If Reza already had it open in the studio, and if I went ahead and opened it, this is what happens. And we'll just demo it to you right now. Right. The next, or the current one, which is in experimental in Canvas apps, is the ability to do co-authoring. And this one put a big smile on my face, because of, as the term says, you are now able to co-author with Power App Studios, and Reza and I will demonstrate that. So it's a couple of things to keep in mind. There's a few things that you have to do. It is an experimental. You all know experimental means that things can change. Some of the features might change. So definitely play with it, test it. Do not do it in production. And also there is another in order to go ahead and configure it, you have to go ahead and do this enabling the Git version control, and we'll demonstrate that as well. Basically, what you're doing is you're going to go ahead and set up your your backend so that all the changes that you're doing is stored in a different place. And over there, you're going ahead and making sure that any changes that you make is stored over there, and then you're talking to that before you go ahead and publish it. That's the key thing, is that it temporarily is being stored somewhere. We'll demonstrate that to you to go and show that. All said and done, this is how the async of co-authoring happens. Remember what I just told you is that while you're working on it, you're doing the co-authoring and you're doing the temporary saving or you're doing the sharing. It is being saved in a different location, and you're kind of doing an async. Async co-authoring means that whenever like for example, let's just say the pro dev number 1 is Reza over here. When Reza goes ahead and does the commit, it will take that copy of whatever is the latest version and it'll go ahead and put it in the master one. Simultaneously, if I go ahead and now want to make a change, I just have to do a refresh and I go ahead and get a copy, the latest copy, which Reza did, from the master copy, which is the master branch over there. Basically just the whole, the primary one. That's the one that you go and do. And that's basically leveraging this 3-way merge, very similar to what's already available in GitHub. So bottom line is that even though this sounds like a new functionality, which it is, under the platform, under the hood, the way it works has been tried and tested for a while. And that's basically what I like. So here's basically an example. It's a GIF that is there. But what I'll do is that Reza and I will actually demonstrate that to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first show you that one pain point that we've been feeling for a while. So let me actually go ahead and get out of my slide deck. And here is an example. All right, I have a sample app, and I am going to go ahead and now edit it. So let's just, and I don't know, does Reza open in the background? I have no idea. He may have opened in the background. We'll just assume that Reza have it open because I want to show you something. So anyway, here's my sample app. Right, I clicked on it. I go ahead and now edit it. And when I'm going ahead and editing, it is going to go into the studio, and it comes up with this one message away. It says that sample, which is the name of the app, is locked for editing by Reza Dorrani. This is something we've been doing it for a while. We've been seeing it for a while. Now the demonstration that we're going to show you is how it doesn't affect it this way. All right, so I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to go back into my Canvas apps. So I'm going to go back in where I see my apps. Yep, so I'm going to leave that. Make sure I'm in the correct environment so I can go and see my app. And I'll go ahead and open up my R&D prod, click on the apps. And now here is another app. So I'm going to go ahead and edit that and open it up into my Canvas Studio. And when I go up into the Canvas Studio, it's loading. Now watch out. I didn't get that error, all right? What I did get is the sign into your repository. Remember that slide deck I just showed you of how the changes that you're making is stored in the GitHub over there, where you've got those different copies, and we're all going to get copies. Now, when you go and save it over there, and I'll let Reza go ahead and tell you a little bit more details on how this authentication piece happens in the GitHub side. Basically, what you're doing is you're not authenticating it with the GitHub username and password. There is a token you have to go and get and work on that. But that's all the magic that happens. Anyway, I went there and clicked on it. Now I'm going to go and sign in. This is like a pre-step that you need before you go into the Canvas Studio. Something to keep in mind. And here is where all the magic is going to happen. All right. So I'm in the Canvas App Studio over here. Now, Reza is right now, he's actually going to go ahead. He's also in the Canvas App Studio, and he could be making some changes. In fact, let's just say that Reza has gone ahead, in this little control over here, the text input control, Reza is actually going ahead and doing some magic in. So we'll actually show this live to you. So Reza, let me know when you are in and you've gone ahead and make some change. And I'm going to put my hands up over here so that people know I'm not typing in anything. You can actually see my hands. So
this is me logging in to that same Power App, signing in with that same GitHub token with a low battery. So just give me one second. That's not something I wanted. All right. So I've logged into the app. I am editing the app right now. I have made a change. And all I've done right now is I'm saying, hey, Dan, this is Reza, and I am editing this app at this instant. Now, this is asynchronous co-authoring. So when I make my change, because my app is connected to GitHub, and I will show you how I set all those things up. But first, let's go through the demo. Since this is set up for co-authoring, on the top right-hand corner, we get this new option here called commit the changes. Basically, you're committing these changes to the private GitHub repo where all of the code associated with this Power App is being maintained. When I select this, it will go ahead and commit the changes that I just made to the GitHub repo. Now, once this happens, let's switch over back now to Dan's screen. So I'm going to bring Dan's screen up again. This is Dan editing that same Power App. Now, in order for Dan to get the latest changes, basically, he could make other changes here and even merge. Once he does that, if he goes and clicks on that same sync option on the top right, you will observe that it will go back to the Git repo and get the latest changes in. So right now we have both Reza and Dan editing the same app at the same time and making changes to the app at the same time. So this is co-authoring asynchronous in action right here. Now let's have Dan make a change. So Dan's coming to the Power App, and let's say he added additional screens, he built additional components, and basically in our case here for the demo, we are keeping it simple. Dan says, hey Reza, this is Dan editing the app. Now, once Dan makes his changes, he has to ensure that he goes and commits it.
Yeah.
Now, bear in mind, committing is basically committing the changes to GitHub. The standard publishing of Power Apps still holds true. If you want to publish this app for your end users, you still have to go to File and Publish, the standard procedure. GitHub is mainly built here or mainly being utilized here from the co-authoring standpoint. So Dan has gone in, made the changes, and committed the changes. Now I'm going to go back to my stream. So this is me making changes to the app. Let's say I move this image on the top right. So I've made a change. Now let me go ahead and click on commit the changes. So now it's going to apply the sync. And notice what happened. Two things happened here. One, it got the latest changes that Dan made. So I can see Dan's comment here. Plus, it even respected the change that I made. I moved this icon from the center to the right. So it's basically performing a sync action here. Think about scenarios and projects where you need multiple users building multiple screens at the same time, multiple devs, right? Fusion development. You can have 10 users in here building 10 different screens and working at the same time on that Power App, improving, of course, the timeline for the development of the app. And this is where the first feature for office commenting that Chuck showcased earlier, imagine how useful that is. We are building the app live and we are talking to each other like, hey, Dan, I'm making a change on this screen. I'm adding this new feature. I've made the change. Can you go and apply the sync so you get those changes? We can go back and forth by leveraging that commenting feature as well right here. Dan, would you like to add anything? Chuck, anything to add to this feature before I show how I set this up?
We demonstrated it. It's just that it is asynchronous. That's the key one that you want to be keeping in mind of. And then always, right now, there is that one manual step is that you've got to go ahead and go to the top right and click on the committing. So it's not automated. You got to go and commit it. But from a maker standpoint, I like that. Because I'll be working on the app. I'm looking at the app and focused on the screen and all the controls and designs. I don't automatically want to see new things pop up because sometimes that can be confusing. So the ability for me to control when the new data comes in, the new features comes in, that's actually sitting really well with me. That I want to go and click on that, commit to do both, push in my new stuff and see the new stuff coming in. That one step where I have control over when I should commit is actually sitting really well with me, that I have that control from that standpoint. That's all I had to add over there.
Okay, so now I will show you how to go ahead and set this up. Now, of course, I can give you the technical deep dive, but let's do this from a beginner standpoint, right? I'm brand new to this. I'm building a simple Power App. I want to share this app with my colleague. So I want me and my colleague to work at this app in a co-authoring fashion. So I'm going to try and keep this extremely simple while I explain this. And honestly, this feature has just been released. It's experimental. And we were planning to show this in the form of a GIF. But then, I noticed that, this is out in one of the tenants that I own. And I was like, let me reach out to Dan. And, we tested this out on an evening. Yeah. It took me 10 minutes to set this up. I am no GitHub expert here. Within 10 minutes, by following the documentation, I set this up. So I'm going to try and explain it in simple terms here. So let's begin with how to set up your app for co-authoring. The first thing for you to get this experimental feature, if you head over to settings for your Canvas app, and if you head over to support, I believe the authoring version that you need to have in order to have this feature has to be higher than 110.2.1101.26. It has to be higher than this version or this version in order for this feature to be available in as an experimental feature. That's the first thing. So if you don't see it, that could be one of the reasons, or maybe it's not yet rolled out in your region. Highly possible. So bear in mind, it's experimental. Second, you need to have a specific version in order to even get that feature. And once you have the right version, and if that feature is available, when I go to create my app, if I go to upcoming features, one of the options, and let me try and see if I see that, if I search for Git, will be show the Git version control setting. This would be turned off. You need to go ahead and turn this on. Once you go ahead and turn this on, at that moment, you will get an extra option under settings called Git version control. Now, in my case, I've already gone ahead and set this up. In your case, whoever is creating this app will need to create a repository in GitHub. And the way you create that repository in GitHub, of course, there are steps for that. And these steps are very well documented. I'll place all of these links in the chat, how you can go and set up your own repo. Two things to note: your repository has to be a private repo in GitHub. That's point number one. And this is what my GitHub repo looks like. So this is my GitHub repository. If I get in here, I have my RD app repo that I have created. In here, I have a branch called main. And in here, I have the RD app right here. And you can see that there was a commit made 5 minutes ago. That's probably the change that I made, and I hit the sync button. So all those changes are coming here. Now, this Git integration feature is not new. I think 6 months ago, PowerFX became open sourced, right? Mm-hmm. And the way it works is all the code, which is YAML, Y-A-M-L, all of that you can sync down to GitHub and actually go to Visual Studio Code and actually make changes directly in the backend code base itself. So you can do that. And this versioning feature is actually leveraging that same concept. Here is my branch, and here's my app, which is RD app. In here, I have all my resources, the manifest file, right? I have my source files here. I have my assets here. All the details associated with that Canvas app is right here. And if I want, I can actually go and look at the formulas as well. For example, the home screen that Dan and I were working on, this screen has a label. This is the formula, or the YAML formula associated with that label. So it's all here. And when we go to the Canvas app and go ahead and make changes and commit those changes, it's actually modifying the files here at the back end because it's tied to GitHub. So that's how the backend piece works. And if you look at the documentation, there are certain restrictions that you need to be aware of, extremely important. I made that mistake when I was setting this app up. First thing is, your repo has to be a private repo, cannot be publicly accessible. And second, your repository, you need to create a personal access token for that repo. So I set this up in my GitHub, in my private repository. If you remember, when Dan tried to sign in, he was asked for a code. That code is that personal code that I created by following the steps right here in this documentation. So I followed this.
So Reza, you just answered Krishna's question right there too. It's like, what is the security there? You just went ahead and answered that. So Krishna, you're welcome.
So yeah, you just need to go and set up that private access or that personal access code. And once you have that, you got to share that with your app makers. Now, does that mean I have to share it with everyone in my organization? No. This is going to be shared with the owners of the app. In order for Dan to make a change to the app, he has to be a co-owner of the app. I have to share the app with Dan. I have to make him a co-owner. Now, on top of that, because I have linked this to GitHub, when Dan tries to go in and make modifications to the app and he tries to edit the app, he will require that access token as well. And once he plugs that in, he's going to come in and see that sync option on the top right. So that's the basic concept around this. You just go and create your GitHub repo. And once you have all of that in play, in this settings screen, you will be asked for your GitHub repository URL, your branch name, your directory name. If you've not created that, just enter the names here and click create. It will automatically even go ahead and create it for you. Once this is stored, all that information is logged. Your Canvas app is now connected to GitHub. I know I'm going to get a question. What if I want to disconnect this? I started code development, I finished, now I want to disconnect. Very easy. All I have to do is go back and turn that feature off. And now it goes back into the standard Power Apps realm. But bear in mind, before you do that, it's extremely important that you go and save and publish the app, because you want your latest code to be published. You don't want it in GitHub. So every time you're ready to push it out to your users, go ahead and publish it in the standard publishing and versioning realm of Power Apps holds true. Additionally, you have the capabilities of GitHub also coming in here. So you're getting the best of both worlds. Again, this is my opinion. It's purely experimental right now. Many more features are going to come in, but this is my experience with this feature for spent around 15-20 minutes on this, to be honest.
Yeah. And Sandeep asked a question. I went ahead and answered that, but I just want to see if anybody, you or if Chuck want to answer. It's like, so you're saying that, Reza, you're explaining about the 3 changes you did and sync. What about the changes which Daniel did? Does it require another GitHub? So I went and answered it that no, both him and I are talking to the same GitHub repo. We both have to go and put in the same token. That's the whole thing, like one centralized location to go ahead and get the changes and push it back. The Sandeep, just the neat thing over there is that it does everything simultaneously. So that demo that Reza did just a few minutes ago is that he was able to get the latest changes, that additional comment, that one line which I added, plus he moved that icon to the top right. So it's getting as well as it's going ahead and updating simultaneously. It's really powerful on the back end. I was pretty happy with that.
I'm also seeing some questions around GitHub and security. An organization might not be comfortable with that. Well, first of all, it's a private repo. But yeah, if you don't want to go to GitHub, you want to store it, for example, in Azure DevOps, that is also coming. If you look at the documentation, that's also there. So you can actually have this control through Azure DevOps as well in future. But right now, the experimental feature is only related to GitHub. So that's also in play. There were also questions around whether this co-authoring is coming to Power Automate. Yes, those features are also coming to Power Automate. Whatever we are showcasing today, commenting, co-authoring, it's going everywhere. So this is Fusion development inside this platform, the Power Platform.
Ooh, I like this one question Maruti asked. I'm going to go and put that in. Can we revert the changes after sync? Chuck?
I don't think so right now.
Yeah, right now.
I would say no right now. There is no option to revert right now. At least not from the UI standpoint.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. That's a good question.
But if you did revert it at just the GitHub repro and then synced your Power Apps, it should actually roll back those changes.
Roll back through that. Yeah. But what I meant is you can't do that from the app. You'll have to come out of that.
There isn't a version picker inside of our UI. And that's, I think what they're asking is, can I go out and do, again, some picking of it for change sets? Yeah.
Good question.
This is another really good question. This one is from Hidayat. He says, does the changes made by each user is logged in GitHub? The answer is yes. If you actually go to GitHub, you go through the trace, you have step-by-step version, who made the modification, what did they change? All that information is available for you inside GitHub. So the answer is yes. That's a great question. Geeta also has a question. Does it merge updates or take the most recent updates if the changes was made? So Geeta, the answer is both. It takes the recent updates and merges the changes. If you remember when I was syncing Dan's changes, I moved that icon from the top left to the top right. So it basically respected that change, plus it brought in or merged the changes that Dan had put in play as well. So the answer is it does both, which is pretty neat. Yeah, I think that obviously there are a lot more questions, but we have to be respectful of the time. We'll try our best to answer the questions in the chat. as much as we can. Let's move on to the next part then, Dan, which is the last part for today. Dan, you want to show, I'll pop up your screen again.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we do want to at least touch a little bit, excuse me, a little bit on the. You got me, all right.
Yeah, I got you up on screen.
Switch over to, yeah, right here on the topic of going ahead and talking about Power Apps component library. We know that what component libraries is, but we basically know what components are. So let's start at that level. Components were available at the app level, where you can go ahead and anything that is reusable, you go and make components. And I know that's been out for a while in our Power users community over there. People have uploaded the components over there, so it's heavily being utilized. But now the concept of component libraries is also available. So just to give you a quick, demo on that, here in my tenant, I've gone ahead and switched over to an environment. And in my apps itself, this is the one that we see, apps. On the right, there's also another option for component libraries. And this is where you now go ahead and create your components, basically your combination or your group of controls that you think is reusable. You go ahead and now keep it at the library level, because now every app in this environment can go ahead and actually take it. And the flexibility of that is that inside that component libraries, you can have multiple components over there. So I'll quickly go ahead and open up this header and footer. So I'll open up in this edit. And when you go inside the edit, I want to show you what that component library looks over here. And you can go ahead and actually do some hacking from a perspective where if you are, for example, I got too excited. I'll tell you what in a minute. Let me go in here first and see. So inside this component, which I have in the component library, I do have multiple components. So I have the header over here. I've got the footer over here. And the reason I wanted to show you that is because if I now switch over to an actual app, in my app now, if I want to go ahead and add that component library, you have to come into the plus over there. And right on the bottom, that's where you see get more components. This is how you're able to go ahead and get the components. So you basically need to know where it is to find it. It's not, excuse me, it's not anywhere over here on the top menu. You don't immediately find it. You got to come over here and get more components. The neat thing is once you found it, it automatically creates this library components. It'll do that. You just got to go and click on it once, and then it automatically creates this library components. When you click on it, these are all the ones that you go and get. So for example, when we switch back, I had two component libraries. And in the first one, which was the header and footer, I had, as the name suggests, header and footer. So I went there and got these two. When I come now in here, I go to get more components. This section shows up. And then when I go ahead and do a refresh, it's not pulling that. Well, why it's not pulling it? Because I already have it. That is one of the neat features I like, because there's no confusion. I think, if you started building a whole bunch of these component libraries and you've already pulled something in, do you get confused as to, do I already have here? Do a side-by-side kind of, visual looking up to see, do I have it? No, if you already have it, you don't have to go ahead and get it all the way here. Other neat functionality is the refresh. So you might have already added into your library of component library. Doesn't show up over here just because of that little lag on the refresh. You've been given the option to go ahead and do a refresh. Now, in closing, the one little kind of like a little hack I wanted to show you was when I had done a video on just on the components, I had shown how I was able to go ahead and create a navigation using a gallery. Now, in that video, and for all of us who already do it, you are able to go ahead and use your data set that you have, whether it be Excel spreadsheet sitting in OneDrive, Dataverse table, SharePoint list. You go and do all of this. Well, you can't go ahead and create that in your component library yet. However, here's the trick. What you want to do is in your component library, say, for example, actually, it's the other one. So let me go back one more level, and I'll go ahead and grab my one for the header and the footer. The one for my navigation. So I'll select that one, which is another component in the library. I'll go ahead and click on edit. And I've got a video coming up which will further deep dive into this. In this one, I just want to kind of give you a taste of what this whole thing is all about. So I'll go into the loading piece, and I've gone ahead and open up this horizontal one. In the horizontal one, if you've noticed, I have a gallery, and I've also gone ahead and added, one for the title, one for the button. And then all of these other controls that I have, I've gone ahead and added that as well. I made sure that I have one for the items. All right. So I've done this very simple setup in my the component library as a component. Now, when I go into the app itself, right here at the app level, let me go and close this. Right here at the app level, I can go ahead and go all the way here to that and go into the items. Go into the app. I can actually assign a direct table. That table will be the one which is whatever my collection is. So in this example, I've come in now to helpful links. That helpful links is coming, as the name suggests, from the SharePoint list. And when I go ahead and put it in directly tied to the helpful links, it behaves like a link. So I successfully was able to use a component library with an external data source, which in this case is SharePoint. Now I'll share some tricks with you. In here, watch. I come in, I play it. If I were to click on it, it's actually opening up and behaving like a library. So I went ahead and put this in for the community. It behaved like. So Daniel, how the heck did you do that? Well, it was just a very simple hack. The hack was in my components library. I come in here. I just took a big button and I went ahead and hit that button around it. And in the button, I went and put this launch this item URL. And it works because now I was able to go ahead and take that component library directly inside a different app. Here's my app. Went ahead and made sure that I got that component library, which is the horizontal navigation. And then in my horizontal navigation, I made sure that the custom properties was selected as a table, went ahead and assigned that library there, and it just works. Key thing is that you want to go ahead and at least add the controls, which you will put in over here. So you want to add the title. The title over here in the control is the exact same type of title that I have over here in that, and start putting in this item.title. Same thing for the button. When I click on the button, I'm going to put in that function, launch this item.url. Moment you do that similarities, you're kind of thinking ahead that my URL, I'm going to put this item. For my title, I'm going to put this item.title. When you go ahead and import that component, you're going to add the same type of SharePoint, your data source will have the title, will have that this item, will have the URL column. And that this hack way, it actually works. And you're not kind of breaking anything. It's just that you're planning ahead. In the gallery itself, you're going ahead and putting all of those properties, you're going ahead and putting all of those controls, and you mimic that directly inside the app. And that's the workaround, because that was one of the biggest frustrations. I constantly get updates on that. Is that, hey, man, with your components, it works great. Move it to the component libraries. I cannot make a data connection. How do I work around that? Workaround is you plan ahead. When you're building that components library inside, when you're building the components inside your components library, plan ahead on what you're going to have the URL, like your column types. My example, this item.title, this item.url. And you also went ahead and planned what those, if you want to click something, which is mostly important for a library, you start putting in a button or something else too. You could put it in a label, but then you can put in the launch dot this item and the URL, and it just works. So kind of come up with these type of workaround ways, and it works really well. And I do have a more detailed video coming up on this topic, but I at least wanted to kind of give you that little appetite and share that little tidbit. I know there's a bunch of experts over here. You pretty much got my, the gist of this, and you can take it and start working around that. Bottom line, using component libraries, you can still pre-plan for a data source directly inside the app where you call that library over there.
So Dan, sorry to jump in here. So the idea behind talking about component libraries, why are we talking about this suddenly in co-authoring and collaboration and fusion development? Yeah, well, because a component library is the way for pushing out components to apps. And Dan mentioned that you can go to that feature called Get Code Components, where you go to the plus icon on the left, you select your components. Now, the components from your component libraries. The beauty of component libraries is it acts just like an app. So if I have a certain set of components that I want to share to a specific set of users, I need to share that component library with that user base. Only those users then will be able to consume that component library in apps that they build. So once again, it is kind of collaboration because someone else is building a component, let's put it that way, putting it in a repository called a component library and publishing it out for consumption by other app makers. So once again, it enables reusability of code because you have one component that's being leveraged by multiple apps. If a change was made, it gets pushed out to all the apps that are consuming it. So those are the benefits of leveraging components. Now, one good question I see on components, which I would like to put forth to Chuck actually, and this question is something that I have had as well for a very long time, is when will components go into general availability?
Yeah, I'll have to check with Hemant Gour. Hemant is actually the owner of that. I don't know if you can hear me okay.
We can hear you fine.
I referenced his latest blog post, but as far as the libraries themselves, I'll actually go. I'm going to circle back to Hemant and see if he can actually update a comment or at least a note to that blog post. Great question. I see that there was a couple questions in it from Krishna and Deepak as well. So
yeah, that's the question. All right, so I think we've got most of the questions answered. Of course, there are more coming in. Dan, would you want to go ahead and go back to the slide deck next?
I will do that.
All right.
So we talked about, yeah, right there.
So we can, all right, we see your slide deck coming up now. You'll have to swap. There you go.
Cool.
Okay.
All right, so we went ahead and did the experimental for co-authoring with Git integration, talked about that. Real-time co-authoring, that's another functionality over there. Do we want to spend a little bit of time on this one?
So this is more or less what Chuck showcased earlier, wherein you'll have multiple users, making modifications at the same time, and of course leveraging the commenting feature there. Why is it real time? Because you don't have to keep hitting that sync icon; it's automatically doing that for us in near real time. So that's a pattern that's coming, and
like I mentioned, that UI isn't done. There's actually going to be a chat as well. It'll take you directly to Teams with that person.
Exactly. Cool. And then, I really like this kind of analogy, and it kind of sums up everything we just talked about, is the whole concept of alone I go faster, together we go further. I kind of really like that analogy over there. So, and further and faster. Forgot about adding that little one click over there. So just to reiterate, alone I go faster, together we go further and faster. It's really two combinations all put together over there. Any other thoughts on this one, Chuck? Reza?
No, it's actually, I mean, my background is ALM, and we actually understand that DevOps and actually removing the friction from actually communication makes your applications better. It's just, I mean, we don't have to have these big testing cycles because the applications themselves are hardened by the time that they actually get deployed. So yeah, it's a great statement that we get further, and it actually is more meaningful. That's even more important.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks for that. And definitely cannot leave without wishing Baidi, or he goes by, Baidi and his Twitter handle, a very happy birthday. His birthday.
Happy birthday.
Today. Yep.
Happy birthday, Baidi.
Yeah, he went there, and when we were just tweeting about the session with excitement, he actually went and retweeted saying that, wow, it's on my birthday. So happy birthday. We definitely want to thank you for all your support. And then finally, I want to also kind of give you a little bit of a taste of the next one. We're going to talk about the ultimate list show, which is the Microsoft list. And we're going to have the two top people from Microsoft. We're going to have Mikhail and Mark Cashman. Both of them are going to be there on February 11th. And we're just going to have a fun time deep diving it with these Microsoft product people to talk about Microsoft lists. So go ahead and pencil that on your calendar. We'll start talking a little bit more about that, tweeting it. We'll have our YouTube, video already. But that's the plan for next one over there. Any thoughts on that one, Reza?
Oh, super excited, and of course, I'm looking forward to that one. And the theme for this season is 2 plus M. 2 is R&D, Reza and Dan, and M is Microsoft. So that's the theme of this season. And when we thought about Microsoft and all the stuff, we thought about none other than the man right here in center, Chuck. So this is a great way to close out this session. Thank you so much, Charles, for joining our session today, for gracing our show today. I hope you enjoyed coming on the show as well. We had a great audience, and I, Dan, and probably from the audience as well, we would like to thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Like I said, you guys make it a pleasure to actually do this. So thank you. And I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. All right, Dan, any closing comments?
No, excited. Like I said, Reza and I came back bigger, better, stronger. And 2022 is going to be an awesome year. So thanks again for all of you who showed up over here. And have an awesome weekend.
Thank you, everyone. And this is probably the first time we are ending bang on at 1 hour. So,
Whoa.
all right. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.